we're excited about the next session now because we're going to be have a panel discussion about what some other school districts are doing. On our panel, we have Dr. Jared Cotton, Superintendent of Henry County Public Schools. We have William Johnson, Instructional Technology Director of Virginia Beach City Schools. We have Beth Harding, member of the Goochland County School Board and chair of the Southside Region of Virginia School Boards Association. And we have John Hendren, Director of Innovation and Strategy for Goochland County Schools. We have Joel McDonald, member of the Virginia Beach City School Board. And for our moderator, we have Gail Harding. She's board vice chair of New Kent County Public Schools, and she's former co-chair of the VSBA Task Force on Virtual and Blended Learning and panel moderator for us today. Please join me and welcome our panelists and moderator. Thank you.
So we started off the morning looking at an international and national trend that Susan provided us. And then Gail talked to us about the state focus in the Virginia Department of Ed. What we're going to be doing next is going local. We're going to hear what's happening in some of our school districts so that you can walk away with some ideas so we can talk about the challenges. As you know, I just ran in from outside, so okay. So thank you very much. We're going to be covering this in this way. First thing we're going to be doing is looking at an overview of the districts. Then we're going to move to discussing 4 main areas. That's teaching and learning, sustainability, infrastructure, and the changing role of the teacher. And then we're going to open it up for discussion. So please start your little parking lot of questions, please, because we hope that you'll have a lot of questions and walk away with a lot of information to support you wherever you happen to be in terms of technology. Okay, I need clicker. So our first guest today is Henry County. If you would introduce yourself and then move forward. Well, introduce yourself, and then I think the presentation follows as we go.
I got you. Glad to be here. I'm Jared Cotton. I'm the superintendent for Henry County Public Schools. I'd like to take the privilege of recognizing my vice chair, Mr. Curtis Milner, who's in the back, if you'd wave, and we're happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Beth Hardy. I'm a school board member in Goochland County and chair of the Southside VSBA region.
John Hendren, Director of Innovation and Strategy for Goochland County Public Schools.
And I'm Bill Johnson, with Director of Instructional Technology in the Department of Teaching and Learning with Virginia Beach Schools.
And I'm Joel McDonald, school board member in Virginia Beach.
Thank you. I guess we'll just provide overview of each of our school divisions. I'm from Henry County, as I've already mentioned. I wanted to briefly talk to you a little bit about Henry County. I don't know how much you know about it, but of course, we were the top provider of furniture at one point: Bassett, Hooker, Stanley Furniture. I'm sure you've heard of many of those, and we had lots of jobs in our community, and that all changed. And of course, as you note from this slide, from the background, we had quite a loss in jobs over time. So it has caused us to take a look at where we're going and where we're heading and how we're going to boost the economy in our community today. And you do see some stats there on the screen. I won't go through all of those specifically, but you get a sense of where we're going. And obviously, we're a community that needs to revamp. So in our community, we've looked at the future workforce because that's what we should be doing. We should be preparing our future workforce in our community. We did meet with local business leaders, and they told us that we were not doing a good job of preparing our students for the jobs that are currently in our community, and they said they needed employees to fill these jobs now. And then, of course, we needed a long-range plan, and these are the top areas that we looked at in our community: advanced manufacturing, information technology, of course, and healthcare. So we did spend some time looking at how we would address those needs. Just to give you a sense of Henry County and our demographics, we are a rural community. You see some percentages there for our student groups that are listed there. We have approximately 66% free and reduced lunch. We've been hit hard with the economic downturn, but of course we don't use that as an excuse. So we have to work even harder to prepare our students for the future. And we have a little bit over 7,000 students currently. So really the goal of our technology initiatives has really come down to this question: how are we preparing our students for college, work, and citizenship? And that's what we spend our time focusing on, not just a test at the end of the school year. And we decided with our business leaders that there are certain skills that our students must master in order to be successful. And we came down to the 4 C's. Of course, the business leaders gave us a list much longer than this as we got started, but we were able to pare it down to the 4 C's. And of course, every time we talk about it, we want to add another C. But our employers in our community said, if you can prepare graduates who can master these skills, then we'll interview them and we'll hire them. So we've spent a lot of time focusing in these areas, and technology is really the game changer. I just wanted to show you what we have as far as devices and resources. We do have one-to-one iPads for students in grades 3 through 8, which is exciting because we're able to extend to grade 8 because our Board of Supervisors provided us funding to expand to 7th and 8th grade last year. So we are 3 through 8. We are fully digital textbooks on the iPads in the elementary grades. We are piloting through COPIA, through the Virginia Department of Education right now, to provide digital textbooks in middle school. We're also providing one-to-one with MacBook Airs for our Warrior Tech program, which is a part of the New Tech Network, and we'll talk more about that as we go through. We provide carts and technology and laptops and so forth. They call them cows, you know, the computers on wheels for our primary and our high school programs. We also have implemented Bring Your Own Technology, as well as many of these other folks have done also. We did want to talk to, just to mention as far as teaching and learning goes, sometimes the easiest thing to do is to implement, to purchase the devices, but you really got to work on teaching and learning, and we've provided lots of professional development through our teaching and learning conferences, where teachers provide training for teachers. Something unique about Henry County is we have an Exabyte Challenge, where teachers submit technology-rich lesson plans, and they win technology for their classroom, Apple TVs, and so forth. We also require teachers to write grants for smart boards in their classrooms. We don't just provide a smart board, they have to write a grant, and they have to be awarded a smart board to use in their classroom, and that really changes the conversation. And this also encourages other teachers to take on these great challenges and initiatives. Our curriculum really integrates the technology through the 4 C's. And I also wanted to point out that something that I think is also unique is that we provide parent training. It's required for our parents to be trained on use of the iPads before the student takes them home. And you want to tell a student they don't get the iPad until the parent comes to training, and guess what? The parents come to training. So that's a good thing. I'm glad to be here.
Good morning. So I'll tell you a little bit about Goochland. Here's some fast facts about our county. One of the things that we haven't represented on here is the amount of economic disparity in our county. Goochland is actually ranked as one of the wealthiest counties in the nation, and that is skewed by a handful of extremely wealthy people who reside in our county. We have a lot of people who do not have the means, do not have internet access in their homes, and that was a key driver behind our implementing the one-to-one initiative. We are looking at through a CarMax grant presently in partnership with Verizon to pilot a program that will provide a hotspot in the homes of our free and reduced lunch students. So we are working on that right now. We're a rural county. We're a fairly small school division, so that's just a little bit of background about Goochland. Now, this is the slide for all the techies in the audience. I had our technology director explain it to me. Essentially, we have standard wireless access. We have the fastest connection currently available in Goochland. It's a great infrastructure, but the pipeline is just not good. It's very slow. We are looking at trying to utilize our new E-rate Category 1 funds to use that to run gigabit fiber. So we are working on that. Another word about our schools, we are a proud MAC school division and have been since 1997. And since we've been doing it so long, we really have one of the best MAC infrastructures in the country. It's more expensive up front. The devices are a bit more costly, but we find that the maintenance of them is much easier and cheaper. Hence, we only have a 3-person technology department, so that's critical. We are a small county, so we do look at opportunities to share cost and resources with the county government. We work with the county IT department and cost share and server management space to help keep costs down there. So from the instructional perspective, these are some of the things that we have. As I mentioned, we are a MAC system. We have initiated our iPad 1-to-1 program. Is that grades 3 through 7 now? 3 through 7. But the thing that I want to stress here is we don't do technology just for technology's sake. It is not about the gadgets. It is all about fostering deeper learning. It's about providing the teachers with the tools to be able to personalize and individualize the learning in the classroom and giving our students a flexible options on what and how and where they learn. Clever is a service that we use that integrates Schoology, Empower School, and Google Apps. It provides the interoperability between these data systems. One thing we don't have on here is Power School. We do use that. Parents have access. It's a great tool for transparency. And one final word I would say, just as a school board member, we felt it was really important to make technology part of our long-term strategic plan. So it's not only about the right type of instruction, but it's using technology as the underpinning. And we find that that is a very powerful tool in what we use to get to there. This is a slide, the SAMR model. And this is the model we're using to build our instructional platform. The point here is it's a process, and you're going to have different people at different places on this this timeline. We have some teachers who are, just beginning and with the substitution phase, but we have others who have really modified it and it's changed and completely redefined what their classroom looks like. It's really exciting when you go into those classrooms. One great example our superintendent gave me was on the modification phase. So we have our online textbooks. That's great. But kids can now highlight in the textbook, and it creates flashcards for them. So it's a way of taking something we have and doing it even better. And we're really excited about that. The last thing I'd like to say is technology is a huge part of our communications. I am a PR professional by trade and have worked with the county schools to develop a PR plan where we're really getting a lot of great coverage on the wonderful things that we're doing, and we're leveraging that through technology. We are one of the very few small school divisions in the country who live streams our school board meetings. We were one of the first school divisions to require our teachers and administration to blog weekly. We have a big social media presence, great website, and we find that communications as it relates to technology has been a great connection with the community. Whereas before you might see negative comments out there, well, we were able to engage quickly, clarify, and give them the proper answers and really act quickly, and finding that that made us more approachable. And it improved the dialogue with the county, with the community, so that now if they hear something or they have a question, they come to us. So that's what we're looking to try to foster, that sort of positive interaction, and we're able to get them good information on a timely basis.
Now I'm going to switch my hat and pretend like I'm Tony. Tony is caught up with weather issues in Falls Church. So one of the things that Tony really wanted to communicate to everyone is that Falls Church has been through what they consider to be a 4-year path to digital conversion. They see this as a journey, not as an ending destination. Technology continues to change, and they believe that their system is really changing with it. Here is a snapshot of the demographics. Um, Probably, if you think about Falls Church, she refers to them as surrounded by the giant of Fairfax County. So there are the city is 15,000 people in a 2.2-mile radius. On any given year, they have 27 to 30 different languages. And one of the things that she says is that more than anything, we are a community of extremely high expectations. When we say no margin of error, it means we are expected to have fast, reliable, 100% uptime connections. There are three main components to their framework, their personalized learning framework. That's equity and access, enhancement of teaching and learning, and preparing students for the modern world. Fairfax really wants, I said Fairfax, didn't I? Sorry, she's going to kill me. Falls Church wants all students to have access to the same device. They also make sure that all of their students have access to the internet. We work with the local foundations to provide hotspots for homes in need. One of the things that Tony said was it's not the same world as it was a decade or two ago, and that preparing students for the work world and the future is a goal of theirs. Sounds like it's a lot of Mac products. More than anything, they want to share the transformation. That transformation takes time. They have a hybrid learning system, and they hire their own staff to run the center. One of the points that she wanted to make was she said that they began preschool with developmentally appropriate teaching for all stages and ages, and that the students record their journey through the year by making iBooks. Lastly, and most importantly, they view that the focus for them is on strong professional development. I think that's a key theme that you'll hear here is it's not just having the infrastructure and it's not just having the connectivity, which we know is an issue, but bringing teachers along to be able to utilize that technology is very important. Okay, we're ready. Sorry, did I mess up?
We started out with 10 base 2 coaxial cable run from one end of the building to the other. I mean, it was just one piece like a clothesline, if you can picture that, and then you drop a vampire tap on it, drop the cable into the computer, and the computer runs. So we had maybe 10 computers in the building and a little network, but that's all it did. And this gigantic printer, dot matrix, it was great. Yeah.
We start out with the license of up to 100 for the home district first. Right.
And since then, 2 years ago, but now, these guys have all put up wireless access points, which are what you connect wireless devices to, everywhere. Every classroom, hallways, auditoriums. So we have coverage for wireless devices everywhere. It wasn't like a night and day. One day we had 50 laptops scattered all over the district and we had a few wireless. It was a steady increase, but then last year was dramatic with the one-to-one personalized learning. But it was a steady increase until we just reached the point we're almost full coverage. We might as well cover everything because devices are everywhere. So at any one time you have, 3,000 devices connected that you're managing. That's pretty difficult to do. And providing each and every single device with high speed and direct connection.
Thank you. So in Virginia Beach City Public Schools, you can see our overview of demographics on the slide now. We are one of the larger school systems with 69,000 students with 86 schools and centers. So you can imagine the technology implementation and upkeep is quite the chore for us. We have 37% of our students that are on free reduced lunch, and like many localities, we see this number continuing to tick up. And you can also see our ethnicity breakdown here as well, which also seems to be becoming more diverse over time. Our student-to-computer ratio is about 1-to-1. That doesn't necessarily mean that every student has a device that they take home at this time, but as far as the resources that are available at the schools, that's where we are with shared Windows devices. This includes instructional computers and use by students and teachers. Over 16,000 iPads and other tablets are being used right now, and that number continues to grow as we continue to buy sets that are in use in classrooms. It's actually fantastic to see the lessons that come out of those uses. A number of years ago, we did put an interactive whiteboard in every classroom. This was actually a decision that was somewhat controversial at the time, as those dollars, some people had hoped, were going to be used in other ways. Administration felt and the board felt at that time that that was the way that we should go as a school system. And it's been really neat. I was actually a data support specialist, which is now a technology support technician at an elementary school during that time, helping that process. And it's been really neat to see the growth that teachers have had in using those and getting students to use them in a more engaging way. We've made some changes recently in our technology support to allow for both instructional and technical support in every person in every school, so that instructional technologists can focus on that, and then the tech support people can focus on that rather than the instructional person being tasked with the updating of iPads and things of that nature. They can focus on instruction. We have independently invested in 120 miles of fiber optic network, which is, to me, just impressive. And I actually have the honor right now of representing the board on a task force with the city of Virginia Beach to look to ways of partnering with them, because they also have independently invested in their own fiber optic network. And we're looking at ways of hopefully joining forces to combine those networks in some ways, to expand coverage, to find the ways of investing in endpoints to increase bandwidth, to work with the community, to perhaps create a more regional broadband access, not only in Virginia Beach, but perhaps throughout Hampton Roads. And then also in there, we're also pushing for additional student access. How can we use this network, these resources that we've invested between the city and schools, near $40 million, I believe, to help students, to give them access. So I'm excited for the work and the discussion that we're having there. And then we just completed a recent upgrade to all of our wireless networks in all of our schools and offices. And of course, the point in all this is education, it's instruction. And we just approved a new strategic plan, Compass to 2020. And in that plan, one of our goals and strategies is to use digital learning as a pathway to personalized learning by increasing student flexibility with respect to when and how learning occurs. And this is, to accomplish this, it's both what happens in the classroom and what happens at home, and the resources that we're able to give students to accomplish that. And I actually want to throw it over to Bill, who knows a lot more than I do about the ins and outs of how we're accomplishing that. So here's Bill.
And on the next page here, we in the process of, we really feel we've done a good job in the division, but we've also recognized that we have a long ways to go. We've had pockets of excellence throughout the division, but we're looking to move it into every classroom every day for every student. There is a major revision going on in our curriculum to actually embed the instruction, the digital resources into the curriculum, so teachers don't have to go look for it in other places. They are still free to add resources, but we give them a starting point of exact resources. We continue to secure additional digital resources, most recent ones that we're implementing this year are things like Achieve 3000. It's a nonfiction reading application, Define STEM, 10 Marks Math, and a lot of the money, I believe, was some textbook type of money that they were able to use for these types of resources. The bad news is it's a yearly fee, as you may know. We're also, to get a handle on exactly what does it mean to move towards digital learning, which includes one-to-one devices. We're implementing just this year digital learning anchor schools. Those all schools were able to apply for this distinction. 11 schools were selected. We have 6 elementary, 2 middle, and 3 high schools. And they're looking at pedagogy, infrastructure, devices, what's needed to move this type of project forward. And as Joel mentioned, we restructured instructional technology support. From a division standpoint, I had been the director of instructional technology within the Department of Technology. I am now the same title, but within the Department of Teaching and Learning. And it can be an argument within divisions where my position should lie. I will tell you the change has been very good in our division. We are more and more, we are much more tightly aligned to the work that curriculum or teaching and learning is doing in our schools. And we and also restructured our support in our schools. We had a person, our school board recognized, it must have been 15 years ago, that we needed help. There was a computer resource specialist that did first line technical support and instructional. As the number of devices continued to increase, more and more time was being spent on the technical support. And so it was, from what we've learned in other divisions, we needed to split that. And so we made a split. And to the school board members out there, that whole split was done on a cost neutral basis. It didn't cost us anything to make those changes. The device, I got the device one up, or my one behind. I think it's up there. The devices. We are a Windows school division, and we had been holding pretty tightly to Windows computers. Well, he's not new anymore. He's been there about a year, but Dr. Spence and our chief of staff, when we started this project, it was very much, you have to listen to what teachers and schools want. It's not for the Department of Technology to decide this is the device. And so right now we have, in these 11 schools, we have a mixture of HP and Dell Windows laptops. We still have those. We have a little larger laptop. We have iPads. One school has a one-to-one type of iPad implementation. Chromebooks were pretty verboten in our division. Not anymore. We have one elementary school. We're putting 650 of those in for grades 1 through 5. Android tablets, those of you in technology, eyeballs kind of roll sometimes with Android devices, but we're going to implement some Android tablets in 1st and 2nd grade. Interestingly, one we're going to try there is Amazon came out with a $50 Fire, and you can buy a 6-pack of them, is the way they were bundling them, and we're going to get those to try. There's an HP convertible type of device. We haven't deployed any of those yet, but we will be. And the idea is, at the end of the year, what device or devices work well in our environment to meet the instructional needs of our students. It could be one device. It could be any of these 3 do it. We don't know. And so that's kind of where we're at with our implementation.
What we're going to do is move into the key areas that I mentioned when we first started. Talk to your friends. Are there slides for each of the key areas? You don't think so? Okay. So, it's just a free discussion, okay? We've done the structured part. What we want to do next is talk about teaching and learning, professional learning. What professional development do you provide to support the change? Okay. You can. This is.
Gotcha. We don't have to go in order, but I'll go ahead and get started. And then I've already mentioned we do our teaching and learning conference, which we implemented last year for the first time. It was a 2-day conference at the end of the school year as a part of the teacher schedule. And what we did was we took proposals from teachers to provide sessions to their colleagues. That was very well received. Technology was the big hit. The teachers that provided training with the SAMRA model, which, by the way, we required the SAMRA model as one of the sessions, but other teachers provided great workshops on using different devices, on blogging with your students, on digital portfolios. So those were well received. We also, as I mentioned, the Exabyte Challenge, which has encouraged teachers to turn in technology-rich lesson plans that we provide to all teachers to use, and they're reviewed by a panel that selects the winners. And we literally go out to schools and say, "Congratulations, you won an Apple TV," and we hand it to the teachers. And we have pictures of the teachers out in the hallway screaming and yelling with their hands up in the air. But what's so exciting about that is they put it to use in the classroom. Their colleagues see it, and the funny thing that happens is the students say to their teacher, "Why don't you have an Apple TV? You know, that's a great resource." And then it's peer pressure, and then the teachers start applying for that, and we're having a great time with that as well. And of course, we provide professional development. We provide a technology academy throughout the year, and we also do a lot of peer observations with the use of technology, and that's really helped us change the conversation. But as you've heard others say, it's not about the technology, it's about a rich curriculum, which is all about performance-based assessments and relevant project-based learning experiences, and the technology really is a part of that. So that's so important.
So in Goochland, our mission or our vision is to maximize the potential of every learner. And everybody thinks about it as students. Well, it's every learner, it's every teacher, it's every administrator, it's the community. And so we provide a lot of opportunities around professional development. I'll let John speak to the specifics and tactics of that. But our teachers are a great resource to each other, as you were saying, sort of sharing ideas and thoughts.
Sometimes it's a curse, but sometimes it's a blessing if you're a small school division. I have the opportunity to go to every school, and I kind of go through classrooms and see what's going on and have a sense of what folks need. And the biggest challenge I have is helping our principals also fulfill that role and to know what a teacher needs next when they're in the classroom, to be able to suggest things. And our principals are part of that huge equation in professional development if you want to change what learning and teaching looks like in the schools. In Goochland, we offer between 40 and 50 after-school workshops throughout the year. We do a short 30-minute sessions we call tech snacks that are available for teachers who don't necessarily desire to sit there for 2 hours, and at the end of a school day, we know that's not the most pleasurable way to learn. We have professional development days that we utilize. And what I've seen over maybe the past 3 or 4 years in Goochland is professional development is not just tech professional development and then teaching and learning professional development. They're coming together because the purpose of having the technology is to advance what our students are able to do. We've also delved into developing our own online courses for teachers, which has been an incredible experience for some of them because they get the opportunity to go in depth into a topic that you certainly couldn't do. And then we utilize our summers as well to expand multiple days across different courses. And those courses change every year. I'm not one who likes to sit there and redo the Microsoft Excel class once again. We're always trying to be cognizant of what folks need and provide it for them. For our one-to-one program, we knew we had to do something a little different because this was a huge game changer for us. And our focus was deeper learning. Deeper learning is a big umbrella term that includes personalization, but also individualization. And we make a concerted effort to not lump those as the same thing. For us, individualization is using a content management system like Schoology that we use so that we can give different assignments to different groups or each individual student. And other students don't need to know that a student sitting next to them has a slightly different version of an assignment. We can tailor it to student learning preferences and student learning strengths. Personalization for us is a big one, and it's a lot harder to do. It means that something personal to the student is part of the learning process. It's about giving students voice and choice. We've started that. We've got a number of really innovative teachers because the way we did our one-to-one program was to start with a pilot school, grades 3 through 5. As we did research and went out and found what was the best way to implement a one-to-one program, we could have started at the high school. We could have started anywhere we wanted. We saw what other people were doing. But because we knew we had a vision For eventually we wanted one-to-one K through 12. We started in elementary school with a 3 through 5 program to take those devices home. That was a big decision. We questioned it several times, and we saw third graders struggling to remember their Google passwords, the first few weeks. But it has been a great learning experience, and our teachers are giving us the feedback that we're doing a lot of the things the right way. And of course, we're adjusting with the things where we've made mistakes. I think that's important too, if you're going to really want to affect change.
Our program as regarding teaching and learning is well based in, as Joel mentioned, our new strategic plan with digital learning. The one thing we did with our new position of instructional technology specialist, that's the school-based instructional person, a teacher. It's a certified teacher. They are an 11-month contract, so we had them in August, and we gave them 2 full weeks of professional learning. And it's centered. We had Susan Patrick, you heard this morning. She came in and spoke to our group. We invited principals and senior staff to that, and she set the stage. Some people kind of walked out with their eyes wide and, no, we're not going to get there today, but this is where where our direction that we want to move in. We spent 2 days, we brought in Virginia Association, VASCD, to do 2 days of instructional coaching. There was very little talk of technology during these 2 days of instructional coaching, because really instruction in Virginia Beach is moving towards the digital format. So that is instruction. That's the way we do things. So we are pushing our ITSs very hard to move towards a coaching model. We have a book study with them on the art of coaching during this first semester. And so we continue to work on coaching. We also, to help get consistency across 86 schools, centrally we developed 3 professional learning courses that we expect each school to deliver, each ITS to deliver to their schools. One of them was on how to plan for the integration of technology into instruction. You heard mention of the SAMR model, those types of things. One was on a new application called Define STEM, one of the digital resources that we have that goes cross content areas and cross grade levels. And we asked them to do a book study with their faculty members. I believe it was called iGeneration. I'm kind of losing the name of it right now, but it set the stage for using technology in instruction. And so they are the folks that will be delivering professional learning in our schools. One of the folks to my left mentioned leadership in the schools. That's so important. When we talked about selecting 11 anchor schools, one of those they applied, but one of the things we did look at was the leadership of that school. Will they support, will they keep this program moving along? So we wanted to make sure that there was a lot of interest in that. An interesting aside to that, I was a secondary person. The elementary principals really like to move lock, stock together. If you're doing it, I want to do it. It seems like we've encouraged our 11 schools not to do that. We want to see different approaches, so that we can find out what works best. Been some interesting things already in schools. I was in one. They were assigning laptops to students, so it was a Star Wars day. Let the Force be with you. And teachers and kids all dressed up in Star Wars characters. The kids were wide-eyed that they got this laptop to take back to their classroom that was theirs to use in school. So we're moving forward, I think, with all those types of things. We offer professional learning classes, not on how, and John, I'm sure, does the same thing, not on how to use Excel, but it's how to incorporate Excel into a science class or some such thing to meet certain content objectives, not how to use that spreadsheet.
The next topic is sustainability. I think one of you made reference to this, and that is we're not talking about one-time funds. We're talking about sustainability over time, ability to add hardware and software. Could you talk a little bit about that?
I can start with that. That's probably one of our biggest challenges right now. When we started with the iPads and the one-to-one, we used one-time funds. We had, whether we used surplus or surplus. What am I talking about? The one-time funds we received a few years ago. That's where we started with the iPads. But then of course the county, as already mentioned, provided us funding for a one-time purchase for iPads. But the challenge is, how do you maintain that? So literally, we've had to go through our budget and look at our budget and build it around this initiative, because what we discovered was we were purchasing these devices, but we did not have a plan to replace them over time. And with our iPads, usually they tell us about, I see my Apple friends over there, about 4 years, then you want to replace those. So we've been exploring the idea of leasing, which we've been moving into. And the nice thing that we've been able to do is use textbook funds as well. We've dabbled into that, where you're allowed to use that to help you with leasing, and we've done that for some of our grade levels. And we've developed a 4-year plan where we're going to add a certain amount to our budget each of the next few years to get all of our devices on a replacement cycle. And that's so important, because any given year you could not be able to replace a device. And even though our students take very good care of their devices, generally we want to have a replacement plan for every 4 years.
I just would echo what he said in terms of having to look at your budget and plan ahead. Technology was a major part of our strategic plan and our Inspire 2020, and we have a certain place we want to be. So it's not just a matter of building, it's a matter of sustaining what we've done. We also use some of the textbook funds and are looking at, ongoing replacement. Could you speak to the Apple lease?
This year is the first time we've done a lease for our one-to-one devices. Traditionally in Goochland, and this got started a long time ago, back in the 90s when we became an Apple district, we did a four-year lease cycle that was always in the budget, so it was easy to budget that way. And every 4 years we did a refresh. So this is one of those years we did that refresh, which really taxed our technology team, because not only were they preparing 2 more grade levels of iPads as we expand the program out to eventually be 3 through 12, but they were also preparing 350 more staff computers that were new, taking those staff computers and putting them off. And so that's another piece of the equation that you got to kind of think about in sustainability, is having staff that can wear multiple hats and not just be focused on one particular thing. I think Virginia Beach saw that, they had technicians, and they were able to split that up and have both the technical support and the instructional support. And if you were asked any ITRT, I think in Virginia, that has that type of title, even though the focus is supposed to be instruction, they also have to be very technically minded. And so that's a big part of the sustainability as well, is as you build capacity with being able to purchase more devices, did we think about adding staff to support it? So I'll stop there.
Yes, board members, I don't envy you trying to implement things like this with the great growing budgets that you're provided from the state, he says sarcastically. I know in Virginia Beach, where currently I think our superintendent has departments looking in budgets, where instead of using money for this, can we use it for that? And if we're going in this direction, does it replace that and we don't have to fund that anymore, whatever that may be? We utilize a lot of the VPSA funding that the state provides us. We call it the SOL Technology Initiative. I'm not quite sure if that's the proper name, but we get, thank goodness, the state provides Virginia Beach a significant amount. It's based upon the number of school buildings that you have in the division, and that's our primary funding source right now for computer replacements or additions and network infrastructure, replacing wireless networks, upgrading servers, things like that. It was tagged along with the SOL initiative when it first started. Thank goodness Lan Nugent at the time in VDOE, hey, if you want to have them do online testing, you got to be able to provide some funds so that they can do online testing. We also utilize the local match funds with VPSA, the professional development funds, primarily That's how we fund most of our instructional technology professional learning. We also utilize, as I think Jared was probably talking about, end of the year funds, those types of things, one time funds, end of the year funds. The school board has been very good to us with providing those, but there's a lot of competition for those funds. What about this? The buses are getting older and older and older and older. You know, where does the money go to move forward with or to fund the activities that we're doing with our anchor schools? It really is right now. It was some one-time end of the year funds and a couple of other places, but if we know that if we want to expand and continue the program, there has to be a reliable funding source of some stream of some sort, either for purchasing, or we haven't talked about leasing yet, but that may be an option that we would want to do a leasing program.
So some of you have actually talked about the infrastructure. Could you talk a few minutes more about planning and obstacles?
I don't have to always start, do I? Do you want to? John, why don't you start?
So you have to have power, you have to have network, and you have to have devices. Those are the basics, right? For a small rural school division like us, and Beth kind of pointed this out, we'd love to have faster internet connection to Goochland. We just can't get it because there's no providers that provide it there. We started when I was a high school teacher in 1999 with two 56K modems that were strapped together. That was the internet for the high school. And they brought me to this beautiful lab, and they said, you're going to do incredible things with these new computers in here starting out. And we all get online, and I'm like, the kids are like, you can't get on the internet. Are you silly? And you just see there the thing would stop. And so you obviously need that. Now, we have a 200 megabit connection. We use Comcast enterprise connections to do that in our neighborhood. And we use microwave to get out to our schools that are far off. But we know that we are going to have to make the investment with fiber if we ourselves, instead of waiting for a company to come to us. So that's a huge challenge, and schools are likely going to have to partner with other organizations in their community, like city and county government, to try to provide that. We're lucky that we have a good relationship with our county government. Might have something to do with their offices in our old high school. I think it always makes me feel good when I go back there. But getting fast connectivity to your site is a huge obstacle. And as we keep putting more devices, you got to remember that when you give a one-to-one device to a student, they're walking into your school, you don't count that as one device. They might have a cell phone in their pocket. Right now, I have 3 devices that are connected to the network here. 3. You've got to count that way when you consider people want connectivity. They're going to bring devices with them, and you're likely going to want to provide them that fast pipe so they're not paying for it for themselves if you intend to use it for learning. Infrastructure in terms of wireless. The wireless technology keeps changing, and yes, your technology department is going to want to probably keep up because the new devices that you're buying this year are going to have connectivity that changes, and so you have to update the wireless access points. Security and filtering is always a huge issue. No teacher in a classroom likes the filter. They realize it's there to protect them and to protect the kids, but that is a huge thing that you're always looking at. And there are new filtering technologies coming out all the time where it's not just going to be an appliance that's sitting in a rack in your school or in some central location. There are now cloud-based filtering opportunities out there. And one of the ones that we're looking at, we haven't purchased it, but one of the things that I think is a really good idea, it gives parents access to log in to see where their child has been. We've never had that type of transparency before. When we were the first school division in Virginia to do Power School, and one of the great features about that, because the information system we had before didn't seem that fancy, was now parents could log in. And we held off a year with that. Well, we're not ready for teachers to put in a grade and have parents calling that afternoon saying, why did Johnny not get a good grade on the test? Or why did so-and-so down the street get their test graded, but Johnny's isn't graded yet? So we got used to the new system, we opened it up. And I think every school division, you've heard examples of that up here today. You start small with pilots, you see what works, and then you take it to scale, because there are a lot of unknowns. You go to the business world, and there are a lot of things you can ask somebody in a business IT department that might help with terms of wireless infrastructure. But when your primary business is human development, there's some other components at play that are kind of important to take stock of. So getting back to infrastructure, the big one for a lot of districts is, okay, we have a pretty good ratio now, but we're thinking about this one-to-one. For those of you in the room, the first one-to-one program in this country started in 2001. We weren't the first. Australia had it first. It was thought of as an idea back in 1980. Seymour Papert wrote a paper to then President Carter, who was just getting ready to step down, with this idea that, in just a few years, the technology will be so cheap that every kid will be able to have their own computer in a school. And it's taken us a lot longer to get there. And one of the reasons is I don't think we've fully embraced or believe what the potential is, and it shows in our funding models that I think that we have, and that's holding us back. And so when you're looking at schools that are trying different things, I don't think that should worry you. When you see schools doing different projects and trying something here and trying another device over there, it's innovation is the way we get to figuring out how to provide a single device for every student. And once you get there, you've passed them all out, you've purchased them, you figured out, okay, for the next 3-4 years, we're going to have devices. Whew, is it time to celebrate? It is for the kids because I got this new device, right? The game is not over for us. That's where the real work begins. And we've got to remember we've got to support folks in the classroom, throughout the school community, towards those goals. Personalization is hard. There are few teachers in this country right now that go through university programs when they get credentialed who are experts at all of this stuff. Our university systems tend to be behind. Yeah, it's great when you go to a university and you see a smart board there. Okay, we're going to teach teachers how to use the smart board. But if you're talking about a student-centered classroom, you've got to put the interactive technology in their hands, not on a board for the teacher to use. It's great that the teacher can use a smart board, but what are the students doing with technology? So, who wants to go next?
Infrastructure. If you've ever remember seeing the commercial, it was the Popeils where where you put a chicken in a roaster and you start it and forget it. Well, I'm sorry, school board members, setting up an infrastructure of networks and computers isn't set it up and forget it. It's a constant upgrade of not just hardware, but it is a constant upgrade of wireless access, all the network infrastructure, the servers that go behind it. We did find this year we had put in one access point in every other classroom in the elementary schools. Guess what we're doing with our 6 anchor schools right now? We're putting in another access point in the classrooms that don't have it just because of increased capacity. We had a question, was BYOD really being used in Virginia Beach when we started it? Well, we ran out of IP addresses on our wireless network, so it kind of told one that yes, we were out of we needed to make some other adaptations. So we did do that. Our Department of Technology does a great job of looking forward to ways to stay ahead of what we need. Also looking for efficiencies. I'm sorry. Yes, I have an Apple iPhone, and yes, my phone is ringing on my or an Apple Watch, and so the phone's ringing. I'm connected too much, I think. They just darn Apple. I got to get rid of it. They look for efficiencies, ways to manage computers without a person having to go to their all those types of things. Electricity almost seems to be the bigger issue than networking, to be honest with you, because our schools, our school board and administration has done a good job of trying to replace and refurbish older schools, but that CIP money is kind of, you can't find it anymore. There just isn't any from the city. And so a problem is who charges their cart today type of thing. The good news is that the newer laptops, I've used one that our kids are using, and I go 2 days without charging it. So it's not as crucial anymore. But electricity is more of a problem. It gets to be almost more expensive than the networking. I think we mentioned at some time, no matter what you do with what device, anytime a type of device is used, I'm sorry, right now you have to be thinking about, can it be used for SOL testing? Can it be used for SOL testing? If you can't use it for SOL testing, you got to have a different device for the kids to use. And from the best of my knowledge right now, neither iPads nor Chromebooks, there's ways of working around it, I think, with some rather expensive solutions for some of those, but they aren't inherently able to take an SOL test. I think the state's working on with Pearson to try to make that happen. But then that limit, if they can, then that limitation on what device you can use in a school may lessen.
Thank you. Before we move on to questions, the final wrap-up piece, if anyone wants to comment on the changing role of the teacher and how it impacts student learning.
Yeah, I'll start with that. I didn't really weigh in much on the infrastructure, but I think it was well covered. We were fortunate to get fiber to all of our schools through tobacco money in our community, and we didn't know it was going to happen, and so we were very, very fortunate. But the biggest challenge we're dealing with now is wireless access outside of school, and I know that that's our challenge right now. Actually, we're meeting with internet providers to find ways. We already have ways to provide low-cost internet access, but we're trying to work on access points in the community, and we've thought of lots of different creative ways to approach that. But obviously, the teacher's role has completely changed in that aspect, more of a facilitator of learning. What I find to be so powerful is we have visitors who come all the time to see our iPad initiative and our one-to-one, and we don't prepare anything for that day. And I have to tell you, when I first got to Henry County and the first group came, I was very nervous because I asked my technology director, I said, what do we have planned for the group? And she said, nothing, we're just going to see what we see. And what I've been so impressed with is when we go into classrooms, we see students using the iPad as a tool, and the teacher providing a project or some type of relevant activity they're involved in. Some students use the iPad, some students use poster boards, some students use some other avenue, and they really adapt and use that tool to accomplish the task, and that's really changed the conversation. But it's also allowed us to do more personalized learning, which you've heard about, where our teachers do provide assessments and ongoing monitoring, and we've had to work with different vendors with the iPads. Of course, we're being told they can test on the iPads eventually, hopefully soon, but our map testing that we do, we're starting to do on the iPad, as well as other assessments that our students are involved in, and it's created more personalized learning, but it's also allowed students to capture their work in a digital format, because we're working on digital portfolios at the end of grade 5, 8, and 12. And one of the things that we've learned from experience is let the students continue to keep their iPad as they move through the elementary grades and so forth, so that they can capture those digital projects and silly things like that that you don't you don't think about. You collect them and give them back and collect them, and now we're learning as we go along. But the teacher's role is really more of a facilitator. But if you're going to really personalize learning, you have to be very strategic about how you approach that.
So for us, it's very much a philosophical thing. We are focused in Goochland, as you heard the announcement earlier today, we are focused more on growth. So I would rather see Johnny improve 2 years in his reading in 1 year than pass the SOL. And it's an empowering statement for the school board to tell the teachers, look, you know, we care about SOLs. You have to care about them. But we're not focused on SOLs. We are focused on growth. And do what you need to do in your classroom to make that happen for each individual student. And technology is a way to allow them to do that. They are able to take all these different tools, and you walk into a classroom and it's like a mashup. So you have kids with markers and poster board and doing all this stuff, and then they've got their iPad over here and they're doing research, and they're doing, as John was telling me earlier, a very specific assignment that teacher has designed for them based on their strengths and weaknesses. So the teachers, it's a different way of teaching. I've heard some people say, you know, we're expecting more out of our teachers. I don't think we're expecting more. I think we're expecting different, and we are trying to provide the tools to make that happen for them.
A lot of my work prior to the last 2 years has been involved in professional development with teachers. And when we approached our next phase with our strategic plan and where we wanted to go, I didn't have the time to put all the nuts and bolts together. It's great when you have a plan because you take the time to think it through, and then you step forward and go, now we're going to do step one of the plan. I was put into this and given the opportunity with a new superintendent who said, you know, what would you like to see here in Goochland? I'm new. I realize what you've been through, and I said, I'd love a one-to-one program. And I thought that was going to be 3 years later. And, well, let's do it. What are we waiting for? And so you're in the middle of this, and whether it was that intense, quick push to move forward or something else, I realized that we would only be successful moving forward if we had a vision and we could articulate that vision across the board, that our principals were on board with that vision, and that our teachers, they got excited about what the potential was. And so I approached this whole thing very differently than maybe we would have in the past, starting with the application. Now think about teaching math. How might we use this tool to teach math? We threw that all away. When we did train with the iPads, I didn't train them how to use this device, which for some of them was frightening. Aren't you going to show us how to, like, organize our apps? And they're like, no. And I'll tell you why. I showed them 2 YouTube videos. Showed them the one with a 2-year-old who picked up the iPad for the first time and figured it out. And then I flipped to the one of the 92-year-old great-grandmother who figured out the iPad for the first time. And I'm like, if they can figure it out, you can figure it out. We're going to just focus on deeper learning. And I had the opportunity to really think deeply about this for a while. In 2008, I published a book about RSS technologies in schools, and nobody understands what that is. It's blogs, wikis, podcasts. And I had this idea, and most of the ideas in that book were things we were doing in our county, but this one was John's dream. The Wikipedia is out there, you can look stuff up, and it tends to be a pretty cool tool. And schools have been afraid of that source because anybody could just do it. Who says you're an expert? But it's kind of self-healing. I thought, well, let's step back a minute. Could our schools develop their own Wikipedias where students are given the responsibility to make sure that information in it is accurate? Could schools develop their own centralized, collaborative space to share knowledge? Now that's a tall order. And even though it was a great idea, every year when I'd come back to it, I'm like, this is not the year for it. Let's see if we can get people interested. So I had this opportunity. I gave these teachers this idea. I gave them a copy of the book. It was 2008, so it was, 2013 was really out of date for technology. But the idea was planted. And the first year nothing happened. But I'd planted the seed in a teacher's head that this was going to be really cool if he could pull it off. And this last year, he submitted it to us as one of our G21 projects, which is our project-based learning framework that we use. And teachers have the ability to get an award, and he was given that award this August when we came back for convocation. He actually did that project, which was really cool, using Google Sites. He didn't use the Wikipedia. He did it internally, but turned over control of the learning in students' hands. And for me, that's the win. Because if you can turn teachers on to something really cool like that, where they've drunk the Kool-Aid and they want to make more of it, that is totally awesome. And there's no better way to get other teachers on board than to create pockets of innovation and have others follow. They're much more going to be excited about doing what that teacher did than me telling them, hey, we could do this. Because doing something different is always going to be more work because it's a change. So I would encourage you to look for ways to incentivize teachers to be innovative and sell any new initiative dealing with technology on the promise of a vision for what we really want for our students. For us, it was tied back to our strategic plan, maximizing the potential of every learner. And why? We kept asking ourselves as we put that together, why? We want our students to leave our school division to make the world a better place. And if we really believe that, we have to empower them.
I can very quickly. I think that in the one of my opening slide or the opening slide, it said great dreams need great teachers. I think that no matter what we do, I don't care about it, the technology doesn't make any difference unless you have, unless the school division has hired, trained, and retained great teachers. One little magic, there is no magic in any of the devices any of us have. It's what a teacher can do with working with their students to expand their opportunities, introduce new people, learn new things that are beyond what you can typically learn with a textbook. If I went to our school board with a presentation and all we talked about was the devices, that would not be acceptable. They're going to want to know, what does the learning mean?
Not too long ago, the superintendent had a roundtable of students that he met with on multiple occasions, and they came and presented to the school board. And one of the things that stuck out to me in a lot of the presentations, these were high school students, was essentially they were saying what could be changed, what could be different to improve the lives of students in high schools. And I don't remember technology being a focal point of that at all, but I do remember relationships being a focal point. The idea of a high school teacher greeting students as they came into the classroom is more important to them as far as creating a welcoming atmosphere where they felt like they were valued in a place where they could learn than the technology that they had in their hands. So I think in the conversations that we have about technology, we can never remove that personal aspect of that teacher who was there for those students to help them be successful.
That's a good question because, the board, we sort of work to set vision and policy work, it's real sexy stuff. But when it comes down to the brass tacks of actually implementing that system, I mean, that's where we rely on our stellar tech team and our administration and the leadership team. It was critical. So my role as a school board member was to ensure that we were making a decision that would be fully embraced by our leadership team. I think without that, it's just not going to fly. If you don't have your administration and your principals fully supporting this, it's just not going to work. I can let John speak to the specifics of the iPad initiative is a good example. It's a little messy, and it was some hiccups, and we learned from that, and we did better this year. But it's been very exciting to see it roll out. I wasn't there for the implementation, but I do go into the classrooms and I see the kids using it, and I know we made the right decision.
I think Beth made a key point. Beth, correct? Yeah, sorry. I want to make sure I had that correct. That we have to get into classrooms. So we adopt schools every year, and I happen to have a couple of our new digital anchor schools. So the question that I'm going to have going in and visiting the schools is, show me what you're doing with these resources. Like, show me how the students are using them. Show me how it is enhancing instruction. And I think without doing that, we just never quite have that realization of what the impact is. Like, we have to go and we have to see it and we have to ask questions.
I'm going to wager 3 years. And 3 years is maybe generous in the eyes of some folks, but I think it's humane. You have to sell them again on the vision first, and it shouldn't start with this. Because if the vision is set at the appropriate place, they won't be able to fulfill the vision for teaching and learning if they don't have access to this. And so that's where you have to start. And so many of us don't start there, right? We start, next year we're getting Chromebooks. And we're going to do Chromebook training. And we forget to put the instruction vision first. And it's easy for me to say because I've made the mistake myself. So yeah, 3 years you'll see a difference. And that was hard for me to learn going through as doing instructional technology, because you'd go through and you'd see so many teachers. You'd go through a couple trainings and they were already doing it in the classroom, and you saw happy kids and everybody was happy. And there was that teacher down the hall who was like, I just can't get them on board. I can't get them on board. And I was frustrated. And I realized that 2 years, I went by that teacher's room, didn't say anything to me, didn't ask any questions. All of a sudden, she was doing iMovie projects with her kids. And it's like, wait a minute, it took her 2 years to fully envelop those ideas and to put them into practice. And so I think with your most reluctant teachers, 3 years is there. And if you don't get there in 3 years, then I think you need to look at the human resources side of things and say, hey, maybe you don't fit into the culture of our organization because this is where we're headed.
That's exactly what I was going to talk about, the culture. I think 3 years again is reasonable. It's a process, like the SAMR model showed. And you've got some people who can get there quickly, some who it takes a little bit longer. You provide the tools, the training necessary, but also the support. And I think it's important that they see that commitment from the school board and the leadership that, okay, this isn't going to go away. This is not a flash in the pan. We didn't just get one-to-one, initiative and Shazam, we're tech driven. There's a lot more to that. So I think they need to see it. And I think that's a very real and honest statement you made about looking at the HR side of it. This is our culture. We are a MAC school division. This is how we rock. And, either get on board and make it work or it's just not a good fit.
Yeah, I'll just add to that if you really believe in differentiation for students, you need to have differentiation for staff as well. And you really need to find those entry points to find out where they are, knowing that they develop. And I think 3 years certainly is reasonable, but some will get there right away. One of the things that worked for us was we provided them the iPad first to play with and experiment with before we ever handed them out to students. We gave our teachers that opportunity to start using it and thinking about ways that they can use it with students before the iPads came, because right away the fear was there. The other thing is you need to create an environment where taking a risk is okay and it's supported, because if you instantly distribute them and put all these expectations with it right away, the reaction is going to be very negative. And what we say over and over in Henry County is curriculum is never done. Professional development is never done. We're always developing and improving, and you're going to have teachers at different entry points throughout that process. So where one teacher would take 3 years, another teacher, I'd never give them 3 years. They would do it in a week because they're already using the technology.
Part of our learning process on what we were going to be doing, several staff members made the trip down to Mooresville, North Carolina. Many of you may know of the program that they have, where Mark Edwards, who was of late from Enrico, has moved down there. And they've been doing it for several years, and they will be very clear to tell you it's not an overnight type of thing. The one thing, how much time? They emphasize, we expect to see you grow. We expect to see you improve. And he's talking about the teachers. There's always needs to be improvement. So somebody might take a year, somebody might take 4 years, but the expectation is they're constantly moving forward. I don't think it's a kind of like keeping the infrastructure up to date. There is no end. You're not there. It's, well, now here's what we're going to do.
I'll just add that some teachers think there is an end. And there is an end to this. And they've like, well, we're changing this program again. I'm like, it'll always change. If you're not used to it by now, this role is always changing. But it also makes it fun if you have the right mindset.
I would like to thank the panel again as well. This is kind of the culmination of the task force that the VSBA formed with the virtual learning. I know that you were part of that, Gail. Is anyone else that's here today was on? Great. We want to thank you all for doing that, because that was kind of when it was extended. But this is what you all created, and that type of partnership. So thank you all as well for being part of that.